is Akili. She has a secret. Tell us. When the sun goes down, Akili goes to sleep, and she enters a world where all the animals speak. Akili, 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 Akili. But there is something strange about this magic land. The animals speak English, which she doesn't understand. But if you help her out, we know it can be done. Akili can learn English and it will be fun. Akili, 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 Akili.
I speak English! Yay!
Top of the morning and welcome to the program. This is Good Morning Kenya, coming to you live from the broadcasting house here in Nairobi. My name is Jane Wamboy. We are glad you are with us on this 6th day of April 2022. As always, we have a beautiful show lined up for you, and all this is courtesy of the entire team. Tukianza na man like Victor. Wagwan.
Good morning. Wagwan. Wagwan, good morning and happy to have you once again. It's Wednesday, ladies' night, all right? So how is the situation wherever you are? Have you gotten some fuel yet? If not, then just be patient. The government released some funds yesterday but once, so sooner rather than later you will have that precious commodity. Meanwhile, welcome to the show. We have got good vibes. Yes, here, good vibes.
Hey.
Karibu. My name is Victor Doreen.
Victor amesema vibes.
Yes.
Vibes and everything nice, ndo amekosea.
Amesema vibes.
Good vibes.
Victor is telling Kenyans to be patient, and the question is, for how long?
For how
They
long?
have to wait.
We just have to be patient.
That's the problem, because you can be patient up until a certain time that you're sure now things will stabilize a bit.
Yeah.
They had talked of Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. Earlier on, I don't
And
know
have you
if that
noticed by
still
the
stands.
there's less traffic for the last few days on the roads. That's true.
Well,
What are you saying in other words?
But they had said we should expect the queues to die down by Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I said. Today is Wednesday, so we're really expecting that to stabilize, given the fact that, again, also yesterday they said that even after that was assented and approved, we still have to wait for another 10 days, so more or less like another 2 weeks for things to get as to how they were.
Hey, okay.
Patience is the key.
It's a virtue.
All right, a beautiful morning to you. Happy Wednesday. We are here to bring you up to speed with what is happening. Of course, clearly also the issue concerning fuel and where we are as a country, and again also the different issues that have come up from the relevant bodies concerning how we got to this place as a country in terms of fuel shortage. Still a lot in store for you, and clearly also shall be looking at how the roads are looking like. If you've noticed, by the way, sections of Wayaki Way as well as Mombasa Road have already been marked. The toll-free road and the toll road and the free road. So that is also what shall be exploring this morning when it comes to the roads. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange Okelo. Regina.
Good morning. Just some few hours before Kenyans find out what is contained in Ukur Yatani's briefcase, this happens to be the last budget by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and consequently, yesterday the president signed the Revenue Division Bill, paving way for the presentation of the proposed budget that is, where government expects to spend 3.31 trillion shillings for the financial year 2022-2023. This particular financial year commences in July, despite having the presentation 2 months earlier, just to pave way for adequate preparations for the elections. Good morning once again. This is Good Morning Kenya on KBC Channel 1, and I'm Regina Manyara. We have so much in store for you in as far as news is concerned, and news that are making headlines in the last 24 hours. We have an update on matters security, where the government is going to be closing the region's airspace that is within the North Rift and Laikipia regions to just try and contain banditry attacks in that particular region. Further on, we have some legislators who are calling for summons the DCI to summon the deputy president over that attack on Raila's chopper that took place last week. So that and so much more will be coming up in not too long. We welcome your feedback. We are available on our various social media platforms. Myself, you'll find me on Twitter at Ray Manyara. However, the official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. Now, without further ado, let us look at those stories, and we start off with matters security, where Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i Monday told legislators that the National Security Council had resolved to close the region's airspace for 30 days, the regions here being North Rift and Laikipia regions. This is while deploying 25% of police resources to combat banditry in the area.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, appearing before the National Assembly Administration and Security Committee, attributed insecurity in North Rift and Laikipia to proliferation of illegal firearms, political incitement, high levels of illiteracy, and historical land disputes between communities. Matiang'i informed MPs the government had deployed 25% of police resources in the region to keep law and order.
Close to about 25% of our policing resources in the country are spent virtually on that belt of our country. We have kept increasing numbers of our police officers, and now we have come to a point where we are embedding specially trained teams.
Banditry has complicated the lives of thousands of Kenyans residing in parts of Laikipia, Baringo and Elgeyo Marakwet counties. The National Security Council resolved that Kenya Defence Forces be deployed to assist in setting up water pans to mitigate the conflict.
We have the proposed Ayen Dam, the Chesitate water pan, and the proposed Chesitate 2 water pan that is being done and supported by the KDF. Because this way then we are able to provide livelihoods and support to the livestock herders who live in these particular areas.
The government has also closed the Laikipia Nature Conservancy airspace to allow surveillance.
We hope that as we go forward, what will help this place is not more soldiers or more police officers and more equipment. It is administering the place more responsibly. We have created and operationalized over 50 new administrative units in this belt, as it were, to provide administration and security resources closer to the population.
While the government maintains security situation in the region is improving, MPs from the north maintain the government is not doing enough.
On the road going from Marsabit town towards Turbi, there was a massacre of a small vehicle. All the occupants of that vehicle, 7 of them were dead. And the killing is even the road is insecure.
Acknowledging the conflicts in North Rift and Laikipia regions are caused by a host of factors, the Ministry of Interior is confident that the efforts they have put in place will grant them a win in the war against banditry. Reporting from Parliament, I'm Gishoke Washira.
So government there has closed off the airspace in the North Rift and Laikipia region for a cool 30 days as it tries to bring back normalcy in North Rift and Laikipia areas. Now we cross over to matters election, where the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission says it will appeal the ruling by the High Court that stripped its Electoral Code Enforcement Committee of powers to summon any witness or candidate found to be in violation of the Electoral Code of Conduct.
In an exclusive interview with KBC English Service, IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit said the Commission welcomes the High Court decision exonerating Muranga MP Sabina Chege and was still studying the judgment.
We've just petitioned the court on appeal. We are a law-abiding commission and we abide by what the courts say. So we are going and we'll keep you posted. I know it will be in public domain. This committee
On 30th March, IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati said the matter was legally before the committee, dismissing preliminary objections raised by Kuria's defense team on jurisdiction of the committee to hear his case.
Allied to Azimio la Umoja coalition want the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to summon Deputy President William Ruto over the attack on the presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga's entourage in Uasin Gishu County last week. Now, Suna Member of Parliament Junaid Mohammed, Embakasi East counterpart Babu Owino and John Badi of Suba South recorded statements at the DCI headquarters are to record statements. Well, here's Ruth Wamboi with the details.
Dr. Fred Matiang'i had been summoned by the National Assembly Committee on National Security and Administration of Justice to respond to concerns over deterioration of security in the country. On the recent stoning of Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga's motorcade and helicopter in Uasin Gishu, Matiang'i said investigations point out at a planned attack.
The suspects who were arrested with hoards of thousands of shillings broken down in 50 shilling notes, and they have taken statements. Clearly there must have been some choreography.
Matiang'i said they are conducting forensic investigations to unearth more evidence, warning that swift action will be taken on whoever organized the violence. While enumerating the recent attacks on politicians, Matiang'i, however, said the incidents were isolated.
Since this year started and the movement around the country, we have had about 4 incidents of this kind. There was an incident in Busia involving the deputy president. We have people we have arrested who are in court on the matter.
He spoke as Suna East MP Junaid Mohammed, Babu Owino of Embakasi East, and John Badi of Suba South presented themselves to the DCI headquarters to give their version of events that led to the attack of Raila.
I was personally present that day in that scene, and what I saw is an episode that I will not wish to see again in my life, because I saw death with my own eyes. This is something that is unacceptable, something that should not happen in our country.
If you see the way they were behaving and conducting themselves and communicating, and the kind of defiance that came from this youth, it is clear that someone had organized these youths.
The trio wants investigations carried out and the culprits brought to book.
We want to call upon the security operators to be able to go and arrest those people immediately, so that we can be able to put this thing to rest.
This as Women Mediation Network Kenya called for political sobriety as election fever heightens.
How would you feel as a parent if you get a child crawling drunk because they have taken a drink of 10 shillings? If you cannot do that to your own child, please don't do it to somebody else's child. Let us campaign, and because Kenya is here to stay for all of us, we wish everybody well, but we are also saying we have seen values have gone down. Na hii wakati ya siasa haijatusaidia sana.
The women leaders say peace is paramount, even as they start collecting 1 million signatures around the country to call for peaceful campaigns.
Politics of intolerance have no place in our society, because our society is God-fearing and it is a civilized society.
Now, the Council of Governors has threatened to move to court to compel the National Treasury to release 148 billion shillings meant for county governments in outstanding balance for the share revenue in the financial year 2021-2022. The Council of Governors Vice Chairperson James Ongwai said unless the National Treasury provides an overdraft to help cushion counties from the delay in the disbursement of the funds, services across the counties could be paralyzed.
The Division of Revenue in 2021 allocated county governments equitable share revenue amounting to 370 billion shillings. With only 2 months to the end of financial year 2021-2022, the Council of Governors claims it is yet to receive 148 billion shillings of that amount from the National Treasury.
8.26 billion owed to 11 counties for January. 16.20 billion owed to 23 county governments for February allocation, 29.6 billion owed to 47 county governments for March allocation, and 33.3 billion owed to 47 county governments for the April allocation.
During the Council's meeting to discuss pertinent issues affecting county governments, the Council of Governors threatened to sue national government should the stalemate remain unresolved.
We will also engage CBK, CRA, COB, and the National Treasury to provide for an overdraft facility that will help cushion counties from the delay in disbursement of funds.
We have recommended that the National Treasury consult urgently with the Attorney General on the way forward on the matter of the 107 billion ineligible pending bills, so that a way forward can be found.
While dismissing claims that most counties are not utilizing the released funds, the Council of Governors said due to delayed disbursement of the funds, several county governments are even unable to mitigate the effects of drought.
Over 3.1 million people are food insecure in 24 counties, with over 360,000 people in the emergency phase and over 800,000 children facing malnutrition.
National government should take this issue very seriously, as I think what I saw, the county governments have no capacity to intervene in terms of, because of the money that, the meager money that they receive.
We also continue to appeal to international community, particularly the ones involved in humanitarian undertakings, to come in, because we have a looming disaster, and now that the rains for April, the onset has delayed, things are bound to worsen.
As the August 9 polls draw closer, the Council of Governors says it has commenced preparations to ensure proper management of transition in the counties and the assumption of office of the governors.
Now, a group of specialists from the United States of America is in the country for 1 week to run an autism awareness program in Nairobi. On the first day of the initiative, stakeholders called on the government through the Ministry of Education to incorporate autism as a unit in the competency-based curriculum.
During the launch of a 1-week Children with Autism Awareness Program, National Assembly Health Committee Chair Sabina Chege said there is need for more collaboration by all stakeholders to ensure children with autism are fully integrated in the society.
I think coming together, and that's why I said through the societies, even through the Ministry of Education, because we have KICD that does the curriculum, we can be able to have more special schools. I know the ministry was working towards integrating, not separating them, but integrating them with the system. But we also appreciate that not all of them can be integrated within the normal system. And so a parallel program like what the city primary they are doing is very important to be.
Chege also noting that the number of teachers with special training on handling children with autism should be increased.
We also making sure that in our institutions we're also training enough special teachers, and not just training them about I am a teacher by profession, not just about teaching in a class, but also how do we train them on how also to take care of, even to offer support. Some of these parents are in depression, they are overwhelmed. So when such a parent comes to you, apart from them bringing a child, are you also able to offer support to the parent. I think it's all of us. It's a responsibility that we need to take, all of us.
A group of specialists from the US are leading the campaign.
So from the parents training, I like what they're doing here. They're also training them on the therapy and what needs to be done. It needs to be part of education, the basic education. So the ministry cannot run away from it.
We train them on how they can actually teach these kids skills in the home, because not everyone can afford evidence-based services. But when we give them the skills, when we give them the strategies, then they are able to actually do that.
The 1 week program will see parents, teachers and caregivers of children with autism receive training on how to handle the children as they equip them with life skills.
Now, you can get in touch with our reporter there, Beatrice Gatonyo, or even visit our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, for further details if you are interested in getting in with the program. Now, a family in Dandora, Nairobi County is still searching for their son who went missing on December 30th. Last year. The 6-year-old Sean Hendrin Hamilton was last seen in Dandora Phase 4 wearing a light blue t-shirt, a black trouser and black shoes. Carol Sean's grandmother says though epileptic, he is a loving and jovial child. Anyone with information on his whereabouts should contact the nearest police station.
Tarehe 30, Thursday, 2021. Kwa kitu kama saa 8 Desemba. Sasa hiyo wakati nilikuwa nimemwacha kwa nyumba. Mimi nafanya Dandora, Kinyago Police Station. Sasa mtoto ananipendanga sana, akikosa kuniona hawezi kula, hawezi fanya kitu. Sasa ni kama alitoka kwa nyumba. Kutoka kwa nyumba alikuwa anajaribu kuja na pale nafanya kazi. Kuja pale nafanya kazi. Sasa saa 8 ndiye alionekana mara ya mwisho, Desemba tarehe 30.
If you have information that may lead to the rescue and retrieval of Sean there, get in touch with the grandmother, and the details are also available on our website. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has challenged parliamentarians in the Great Lakes region to champion for peace and a conflict-free area. In his address to the Forum of Parliamentarians from the International Conference of the Great Lakes region, read on his behalf by Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, President Kenyatta implored on representatives to be more proactive and involve the public more in conflict prevention and resolution frameworks. The parliamentarians, drawn from 12 member states, are in Kenya for the convention that will last for 3 days. Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka is the president of the forum.
Very pertinent issues. Remember that the eyes and hopes and aspirations of hundreds of millions rest firmly on you. I trust that you shall lead the region into a bright new dawn that is free of conflict, that is bold and responsive to the desire of our people for peace and prosperity, and which breathes life into the unity and common purpose that must be the foundation for our individual and collective peace and security. Our legislatures have a unique role to play by continually addressing the issues of equitable distribution of resources and economic development. Parliamentarians are critical in creating and sustaining the enabling environment that guards against the emergence and escalation of conflict.
Kenya is going to have its elections this year in August. We are looking forward to a peaceful election and want to appeal to all the political players to ensure that we have peace during elections.
On to matters politics, Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi says member parties are under the Kenya Kwanza coalition will ensure democracy prevails in their party primaries. He said the coalition will put in place measures to ensure that they have strong candidates with a view to consolidating their strength in parliament. Meanwhile, the United Democratic Alliance primaries will be held on the 14th of this month.
Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi was speaking in Nairobi during a meeting with over 600 delegates from Westlands and Dagoretti North constituencies. He said he ditched Azimio for lack of sincerity.
Tulieleza kinaganaga kwa nini tumehama kule. Kutokuwa na uaminifu kwa Azimio. Udanganyifu mwingi. Wanataka mambo ya self-preservation. Walidanganya ni handshake ya kuleta watu pamoja. Lakini haikuwa handshake ya kuleta watu pamoja. Ilikuwa handshake ya kupanga urithi wa kisiasa.
Mudavadi also spoke against political hooliganism and called for impartiality in dealing with the vice.
Wale walirusha, kama mtu alirusha mawe kwa ndege huko Eldoret, ni makosa. Lakini hata yule alirusha Kisumu ni makosa. Hata yule alirusha Busia ni makosa. Hata yule alirusha Jakaranda makosa. Hata yule alirusha Kibira makosa. Hata yule alirusha hapa Keno watu wawili wakakufa makosa. Murang'a. Kwa hiyo ukizungumza kwa yote. Kwa nini unataka useme tu ni upande moja?
Meanwhile, the United Democratic Alliance National Elections Board has stated that nominations for all the wards, constituencies and counties will be held on the 14th of April 2022. UDA National Elections Board Chairman Anthony Mwaura also ruled out issuance of direct tickets to aspirants and warned aspirants found violating the party's code of conduct that they risk being disqualified.
10th April, aspirants are notified of appointed presiding officers and polling center clerks. On that 10th April, all the people who will be identified to be our presiding officers and the polling centers clerks will be shown to our aspirants. 12th April, training of presiding officers and polling clerks. 13th April, briefing and correction of nomination materials and proceeding to polling centers by presiding officers, polling clerks and security officers. 14th April, accreditation of agents and our nominations.
To the corridors of justice, the court has dismissed a petition filed by the Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong seeking a stay of proceedings of his graft case over claims that he and another pending application of the Court of Appeal. Ojamong was charged with a loss of 8 million shillings belonging to Busia County in 2020.
Corruption Magistrate Douglas Ogoti in his ruling said there is no urgency to the application made by the Busia Governor Sospita Ojamong contrary to the certificate of urgency, considering the application had been already filed before the same court and dismissed 2 years ago.
That they are seeking orders already denied at 3 levels of the hearings previously.
He also added that the application should not be allowed to interfere with proceedings because during pretrial directions the rules were clear.
On applications, the pretrial order was very clear that all applications shall be filed and heard and determined on any other date other than the trial date.
Submissions by both parties will be made on the May 5th, while the hearing will be on June 8th, 2022. Meanwhile, a petition has been filed at the High Court seeking to stop interviews for 3 positions by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, slated for April 28 this year. The petitioner, member Ocharo, through his lawyer, accuses the Director of Public Prosecution, Nudin Haji, of nepotism, claiming the candidates shortlisted for the position of Principal Administrative Officer, Senior Supply Chain Management Officer, and Senior Principal Finance Officer come from the same ethnic and religious backgrounds as that of of the DPP. He said that the actions of the DPP are a violation of Article 72 and 232 of the Constitution and Section 3 and 7 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions on its website on March 29th this year released a list of candidates shortlisted for 20 positions in various departments. The Public Service Commission has been listed as the second respondent, with the speakers of both houses of Parliament, the National Treasury, Office of the Ombudsman and the EACC listed as interested parties.
To the counties where over 1,800 families living on land earmarked for expansion of the proposed Malindi International Airport project are urging the government to expedite their compensation. The families are threatening to stay put and continue developing the land if not compensated on time.
Expansion projects are now threatening to carry out other development projects due to delays in compensation.
Sisi kama wakazi ambao tumeathirika na mambo ya airport, tutaendelea na miradi yetu. Tutaendelea na mambo yetu ya kila siku. Ikiwa serikali watakuja wanataka kupanua uwanja wa airport, waje na new terms. Waje tuzungumze tena, wafanye valuation upya.
Still in Kilifi County, a partnership between the Sautia Wanawake Pwani Group and Action Aid is offering a new lease of life to girls who had dropped out of school due to early marriages and pregnancy. The 9-month training program offers life and literacy skills to 1,200 girls between the ages of 9 and 14 years.
Kwa sasa hivi mradi huu Education for Life uko na wasichana 1,241 katika kaunti hii ya Kilifi, ambao wasichana hawa leo hii wako hapa. Hawa ni wasichana ambao wamechagua pathway ya kwenda polytechnic.
Elsewhere, a section of parents from Kiambu County, led by the Kiambu Parents Association chairman, Samuel Onjema, are demanding that pupils who excelled in their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations are admitted into their national schools of choice.
Many a times we find that the learners, even the schools that they did not select, they are called to those schools. We appeal to the Ministry of Education. Make sure the playing ground is leveled. All children get to the school of their choice.
Finally, 40,000 families across the country are set to benefit from assorted basic commodities worth 160 million shillings during this month of Ramadan.
Parts of the country are experiencing severe drought, and we are hoping that this relief that can be able to be distributed to these affected families can ease their suffering during this time.
The donations were made in Mombasa by Jafar Foundation and Grain Bulk Limited and will go a long way in cushioning the families as the country faces harsh economic times.
Into matters business with the latest developments, and this happened yesterday evening where the Insurance Regulatory Authority placed Resolution Insurance Company Limited under statutory management. Now, IRA say the company has been facing challenges, particularly relating to its ability to meet its obligations and mitigate inherent risks. Now, going forward, it means that Resolution Insurance Company is not authorized to transact any insurance business. We'll be keeping tabs on that development. Now, on to matters fuel, where motorists endured another day yesterday of major fuel supply disruptions, with long queues witnessed at petrol stations that had fuel. On a spot check by KBC Channel 1, it found that petrol stations which had supplies rationed the fuel, capping purchases to 2,000 shillings per customer. The situation was an improvement of what was witnessed over the weekend and on Monday, after the government announced the release of 34.4 billion shillings to settle fuel subsidies owed to marketers.
Tuesday afternoon. Tens of motorists and border riders queued for hours to fuel, while others were turned away as the pumps ran dry at some petrol stations. Most petrol stations have run out of stock, and motorists could be seen driving in and out of the petrol stations in search of the scarce commodity.
All the way from Gong Road, kuzunguka uko line kubwa, ile iko na mafuta ni chache, alafu baadaye
tunapata huku Dubai. Center hakuna mafuta, industry hakuna mafuta. Sasa nimetoka industry huko Road A hakuna mafuta.
Kwa Westlands 4. So hii nikapita hii Shell iko hapo Kenyatta Avenue alafu nimekuja hii. So kama hii ni ya 7.
In Nairobi, some filling stations received supply but capped purchases to a maximum of fuel worth 2,000 shillings.
Hii shida yenye iko huwezi kunywa mafuta mingi, unaambiwa kunywa bakishia wenzako.
Most businesses have been brought to a standstill as the fuel shortage continues to bite.
Long time on the queues. I was to travel in the morning to Garissa. I could not travel because there was no fuel.
That 1 hour and one and a half hours nimepoteza mahali kule, nimekuwa nimebeba client wawili watatu.
The situation has not eased up in most parts of the country despite the government releasing 34.4 billion shillings as the subsidy owed to fuel marketers. The fuel crisis that started last week in North Rift and Western Kenya triggered panic buying that saw some fuel stations increasing prices above the recommended prices. The fuel availability situation in Mombasa and Kisumu has improved.
I think you can see the lines moving. So even if you go to Obote Road, everywhere, Nairobi Road, I think the fuel is now at least it's available.
Tumekuwa kama bahati pia, tumepita hapa tukapata gari linalotoa mafuta na sisi tukaunga line, pengine kutokana na hatua ya rais jana, huenda kukawa na afueni.
Motorists are, however, still moving around with jerrycans to buy reserves just in case of another shortage. In Parliament, Garissa Town MP Adan Duale sought answers on measures put in place to avert another fuel crisis and a breakdown of the monthly fuel subsidy disbursement.
The chairperson provide the total amount of money collected under the fuel levy, under the petroleum fuel levy fund. 3, could the chairperson provide a breakdown of reimbursements of fuel levy fund?
We'll be keeping our tabs on that. Remember, in as far as oil marketers are concerned, they said owing to the delays in the signing off and also disbursement of the monies required to settle them, well, you are advised to wait almost a week or even 10 days for normalcy to resume at the pump. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now, tomorrow is budget day, and you know this year's budget is about 3.3 trillion shillings. To finance the budget, the National Treasury has proposed that the Kenya Revenue Authority collect 2.1 trillion shillings, while 300 billion shillings is to be raised through the appropriations in aid, 47 billion shillings from grants, and borrowing the remaining 846.1 billion shillings. While here, I prepared this particular report so that you can understand what it takes to actually finance the proposed budget.
In the current financial year, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been tasked with collecting 1.8 trillion shillings. In this year's budget, the National Treasury is proposing to increase the tax collections target on the Kenya Revenue Authority by 300 billion shillings. The National Treasury expects that in the next financial year that begins in July, the Kenya Revenue Authority would collect 2.1 trillion shillings. On paper, it looks good, but tax and economic experts think this would be an uphill task for the Kenya Revenue Authority given that this is an election year, as well as the impact of high fuel prices, the Russia-Ukraine war, high crude oil prices, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic that has disrupted the global supply chain and affected key sectors of the economy.
Looking at part of the effects that the country is going through right now, either through cost will make our imports very, very expensive.
This is despite the recovery that has been reported in some sectors, such as the financial services sector, that has seen banks reporting supernormal profits, and the hospitality industry, whose figures have recovered to pre-COVID levels.
So 2022, we have a big opportunity, and we can see that in our forward bookings, particularly from June onwards. But again, it's not that we've recovered necessarily. The world isn't back to normal.
The National Treasury has also indicated that the government plans to raise 300 billion shillings from the appropriation in aid, which is cash raised by public entities through rendering services to the public. In addition, the government expects 47 billion shillings in grants to finance the budget. However, this leaves a deficit of 846.1 billion shillings, which the government plans to plug by borrowing 275.9 billion from the external market and 570.2 billion shillings locally.
With regard to the debt, I think there is no doubt that our debt will need to be restructured. That is, from all the indicators we are looking at, to raise the sort of funds required for debts that are actually maturing now, there is going to be need to restructure the debts and to talk to the various lenders about this.
The National Treasury projects that the fiscal deficit inclusive of grants would be at 846.1 billion shillings, which is 6% of GDP in this year's budget.
Well, so tomorrow we're going to be keenly watching what Ukur Yatani's briefcase has in store for you and I as Wanjiko. Now, still keeping up with the budget is that the last 10 years saw an increase in allocation towards several infrastructural projects year on year in a bid to spur economic growth and improve service delivery. The Jubilee administration has been banking on infrastructure projects for a multiplier effect for economic growth. We track the projects, their capital injections and impact on budgetary allocations towards them in the last 10 years.
Kenya's investment in infrastructure stands at 6.5% of GDP per annum. It is reported that the country's infrastructure quality was also at 53.6, with 0 being the worst and 100 being the best in the scale.
Infrastructure, wengine wanasema munafanya mambo haya kwa nini? Twayafanya kwa sababu bila infrastructure huwezi inua hali ya maisha ya wananchi. Huwezi upate kazi. Tukisema tunataka stima, tuwasema tuwataka stima sio kwa sababu watu wanakula stima, lakini hiyo stima inasaidia kijana kule kijijini kuanza kazi yake ya jua kali, kuanza kazi yake ya welding kidogo hapo, kuhakikisha wameweka barafu maziwa yake isiharibike. So infrastructure is important.
In the 2014-2015 budget, 255.9 billion shillings was allocated for energy, infrastructure and ICT, which accounted for 14.5% of the consolidated national government budget in that period. In the 2015-2016 budget, Kenya apportioned over 330 billion to capital projects, infrastructure and energy. The government significantly increased its allocation to energy projects from 40 billion in 2015-2016 to 120 billion in 2016-2017. In the financial year 2017-2018, the infrastructure budgetary allocation of 285 billion represented approximately 12% of the government's total expenditure. The 2017-2018 fiscal budget had also focused on attracting investments to special economic zones by providing tax incentives. In the financial year 2018-2019, the budgetary allocation for oil and gas was similar to the previous year. In the financial year 2019-2020, the budget was anchored on the government's focus on creating jobs. In the financial year 2019-2020 budget, Treasury allocated 18.8 billion to housing. The 2020-2021 budget statement was presented against a backdrop of an economy battling with the novel coronavirus, food security threats from locust invasions, and floods ravaging the country. In the year, 172.4 billion was allocated towards roads and bridges. The budgetary allocation towards this infrastructure was, however, reduced by 4.7% from 180.9 billion shillings in the financial year 2019-2020. In the 2021-2022 budget, analysts say fiscal balance is the key to maintaining macroeconomic stability, inspiring growth and reducing the pace of growth of public debt.
We need to think very seriously about what expenses will have to be cut. We are no longer discussing about what to do. We now must discuss what to cut.
Experts say prudent financial management is called to achieve this objective.
looking at, what the infrastructure or other infrastructure projects are going to be receiving in as far as the budgetary allocation is concerned. Remember, some of the major projects, we had the Thika Superhighway, we had the expressway, in as much as, it was also a PPP in as far as the construction is concerned, with loans from the various development partners. We've also had the conversation around government improving infrastructure in the counties, as also coming up with dams as well as water plants to enhance, availability of water. Now to the corporates, private sector firms were forced to reduce purchasement of goods actually in March, in what Stanbic Bank Kenya attributes to higher cost of inputs. Now, according to Stanbic Bank, a purchasing managers index dropped from a reading of 52.9 in February to 50.5 in March, signaling a lower and only marginal improvement in the health of the Kenyan private sector economy. Now, details of this and other stories in our corporate briefs.
The latest Stanbic Bank Purchasing Managers Index indicates that price gauges for both business costs and charges reached their highest levels since early 2014, as purchase prices were pushed up by the war in Ukraine and taxes. The report indicates that economic activity continued to expand last month, but at a slower pace than the previous month. The slowdown was driven by rising inflation, which resulted in slower demand by consumers and a contraction in output by producers. Meanwhile, UAP Insurance Kenya has posted a 543 million shillings in pre-tax profit, which is a 25% dip on the 720 million shillings that the underwriter posted for 2020. The firm attributes the dip in profits to property revaluation loss of 600 million shillings that was triggered by expiring lease contracts and downward renegotiation of rent to align with the market rate. Net claims incurred increased by 20% in line with business growth on account of a spike in motor and medical claims. Finally, the Kenya Iron and Scrap Metal Dealers Association are appealing to the government to lift the ban on trade in scrap metals, even if it is temporary, so that they can sell off their stocks. They say such a measure would help them recoup their investments.
Sisi tulifungiwa kazi kama tuko na stock, hatukupewa hata muda wa kuuza stoko yetu.
As an association, we have put various parameters to see that we are locking out anyone who's going to be involved in the vice of vandalism.
Key industry stakeholders in the Scrap Metal Union are now calling for an immediate course of action from the government with regards to the ban on the sale of exports on scrap metal. The leaders are now urging the president to give them direct measures to address their current crisis, as they say, enough is enough.
Now, irrigation is among the key focus areas for the government during the fourth medium-term plan of Vision 2030 in order to boost food security. Planning Principal Secretary Torome Saitoti says the reliance on rain-fed agriculture has been retrogressive since the investment in irrigation infrastructure.
Medium-term plan of Vision 2030 is set to run from July 2023 to June 2027. The government has been seeking your views on projects that should be prioritized during the 4-year period. Speaking during a county consultation forum in Isiolo County, Planning Principal Secretary Saitoti Torome said, despite numerous challenges such as the COVID-19 disruptions, drought, and invasion of desert locusts that forced the government to divert funds set aside for development towards response purposes, the government still managed to achieve success in most projects that were scheduled for implementation during the current third medium-term plan.
Na yale ambayo hatukuweza kutekeleza kwa mpango huu tutayatekeleza wakati wa mpango huo mwingine.
He says moving forward, the government will focus on ensuring the country's food basket is secure by investing heavily on irrigation and agricultural infrastructure.
Agriculture is mostly rain-fed, so sometimes when the rain fail, that will even affect the economic growth because agriculture contributes a lot to the economy of our country.
Leaders say most projects within Isiolo that had been adversely affected by COVID-19 disruptions are now picking up.
We have achieved most of things which are not achieved, which we plan to achieve, and also some of them we have not achieved because of the challenges which has been mentioned. There is coffee, drought, locusts, and many things which we have faced.
Now, Now to the sporting arena, where the National Olympic Committee has commenced the second edition of the Elite Youth Camp at the Kenyatta University in Ruiru campus. Coaches who underwent the training in preparations for the youth camp last year already reported to the camp alongside NOC, K Youth and Elite Commission members to prepare for the athletes. Now the camp will feature athletes aged between 12 and 18 years from various federations and different counties. The athletes have already started reporting to the camp, led by handball, taekwondo and triathlon. The official opening of the ceremony is set to take place tomorrow at the Kenyatta University.
This camp is important for us because, as we say, a homestead without children has no future. So for the games in Kenya, a team without youths being developed has got no future.
Now, in a quick update in as far as qualifications for the Special Olympics in Kenya is concerned, is that Athletics Kenya President Jack Tuwei says only athletes who meet the Athletics Kenya requirements will be invited to participate in the national trials for both the World Championship and Commonwealth Games. Now, meanwhile, the Special Olympics Kenya would partner with sports journalists in a countrywide pre-election peace touch run geared towards promoting peace. Here's a story by reporter Mwendwa. Well, you can get further details on our website, but for now we take a quick break. We'll be back with an update of what happened in as far as the Champions League and the EPL is concerned. We'll be right back.
Technologies grow, and so you need to be in the know.
We are looking into matters, technology and education.
We bring you tech news from all over the world.
Me, I understand science revolves around life.
Tech policies and programs. Take on Tech has your back. Coming to your screens every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1. Join me, Stephanie Ayeta and Grace Givaga as we serve you with only the best tech updates the world over.
Right, thank you, Regina Manyara, for the news update. Now, let's take a look at what we have on our local dailies. Let me start with what's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Inside ugly Uhuru Ruto silent battles. Yeah, that's worth displaying. Inside ugly Uhuru Ruto silent battles says that deputy accused of undermining Kenyatta legacy and going after the first family. And now it's tit for tat. State staffs DP's Office of Finances in a plan to ground his operations. The president last week said that the DP went to his doorstep in Gatundu and insulted him. I will give more details briefly. Youth 22 years old finishes school thanks to fees raised through WhatsApp group. So how do you make use of the WhatsApp group that you are in? Just asking. All right? Social media is used for insults, harassment, body shaming, and what have you. But there is a community in Limuru who actually formed a WhatsApp group. This is called Bibirioni in Limuru. Actually, they marshaled themselves and paid school fees for a young man. Actually, now he's an adult, 22 years old, for 4 years through a WhatsApp group. So make use of that social media platform. Okay. MP Juma censures state for adding new evidence in case. He said that Malindi MP Aisha Juma has now accused the state of introducing new evidence in a murder trial against her and her bodyguard Godfrey Okuto. Juma and Okuto have been charged over the murder of Gumbao Jola on October 15th, 2019 at his home in Ganda Ward, Kilifi County. She's also accused of storming Jola's house to disrupt a political meeting that was ongoing. So that is a case that is still active in court. Quickly, Uhuru Ruto war deepens and gets even more personal. Now, this says that there's a lot of behind-the-scenes war between the president and his deputy Ruto, which is now snowballing into a spiteful public combat, which is to be settled on August 9th. And it's also reported that because of this, the DP's office has been deprived of finance. And according to the insiders that this particular newspaper talked to, say that they are now given 2,000 shillings for accommodation. The rest, including food, you have to sort out yourself. Okay. So concerns are also now growing on the overpaying bills on food alone at the Ruto's official current residence, seen as the Hustler campaign nerve center could be ballooning at an alarming rate. So you can take a look at that particular story. It's fleshed out there for you on page 4 and 5. That is it. Kenyatta, DP allies battle over fuel shortage in Senate debate. They said that the particular money which was meant for fuel subsidy was channeled to private entity, and the DP said that this is because of state capture and conflict of interest. A lot in there. Kalonzo pulls fresh twist in Azimio running mate. The Wiper leader hinted that he will be Raila's deputy again. Yesterday when he was speaking, he said that it was the obvious. When he was asked, he said that that's something obvious, that he never wanted to respond to it. And finally, governors and CSS NAB Ruto's meeting, which was held yesterday at Ruto's official residence in Karen. The budget, when the DP appeared to address a press conference at his current residence after the closed door meeting, Ruto was flanked by 3 governors allied to his political wing. That is Council of Governors Chairman Martin Wambora of Embu, Josephat Nanok of Turkana, and Moses Lenol Kulal of Samburu. So that is what's happening in the political scene. More briefly, Jen.
Now, let me just pick up from that point. The main read on the front page of the Daily Nation, Ruto versus the state. This is a story that has been covered on 2 full pages, from pages 12 through to pages 13, where they go on to say here that an emboldened and hard-hitting Deputy President William Ruto is pulling no punch and directly taking on his boss, President Kenyatta, and the Jubilee administration that he is part of. So the question remains, who will blink first? Is it the president or is it the deputy? I'll be giving you the details of this particular story because they have also approached you from that particular angle concerning his lack of sort of in one way or the other attending to his duties from Harambee House, which is an office that is reserved for the deputy president, where he's supposed to help the president undertake his responsibilities. But we'll be giving you those details in just a bit. The other story is in concern to the family of the late Caleb Otieno, the employee of Blue Nile Rolling Mills, who was killed after he fell into a vat of molten steel last month. They are now entangled in a bitter row when it comes to the compensation that the family is said to have been offered by the company. According to this particular daily, just very briefly, the father said that he traveled from Kisumu, went to Thika, straight to the company where he met with the HR manager. They were given 100,000 and also told that he would be given a third of his monthly salary. A third of his monthly salary. Hold up. Wait.
Whatever is happening in that direction.
Yesterday was Victor.
Wait a minute. Mwenzaka kinyolewa fanya ngoa.
It is going full circle. Ngojea Dori na Regina mnapatwa.
Nyinyi mnaambukizana tuko peke yenu.
Haya. A third.
Victor effect.
Salary. My roots are showing.
Just continue.
Okay.
Yes. So a third of his monthly salary. There we go.
Yeah.
So that figure was 21,000. So in essence, he would be getting 7,000 times the 5 years that he was there for every month. I'll be giving you the details of this particular story because the father termed this figure as a ridicule to the family, considering it was the company's lack of safety measures that led to the death of his son. Now, the other story here in regards to the fact that more families are sinking into poverty amid the economic despair. And this is a research that has been done looking at the counties across the country, and Wajir and Mandera are the top two counties with poverty levels at 94 and 92% respectively. I'll be giving you these details in just a bit, but this is a report, a study that was conducted by researchers at the Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis. And finally, when it comes to hustles, there are gentlemen in Tana River who hunt for crocodile eggs and sell them as a means of earning a living. 30 years this gentleman has been doing this, and it is a practice that is reserved for only men and boys in this particular area. Details in just a bit. Doreen.
All right, let's begin from on matters education, rather. This is actually what you're waking up to this morning on the PD, whereby teachers will have to do everything possible to ensure they adequately prepare candidates for the national exam. Remember that the 2022 calendar begins from 26th of April, and actually this is the shortest academic year, and so the state cuts this 2022 learning calendar by 4 weeks, and this is why teachers have to adequately prepare the candidates, of course the KCP, KCSE, as well as grade 6 candidates there. And to what is happening in IEBC, there is a rift there over how the returning officers were appointed and how they're going to be deployed to various parts of the country, whereby section of commissioners are now feeling sidelined after the chairman and the CEO, that is Hussein Marjan, as well as Wafula Chibukati, appointed. This arose as well as their deputies without necessarily consulting them. So that is what is happening there on matters IEBC. And also Raila's helicopter attack was planned. This is what the Interior Cabinet Secretary said when he appeared at the National Assembly. Yes, still saying that investigations are still ongoing. And you can remember that this 3 parliamentary purposes, that is what he has said. And so he says that the government, the state, needs to clarify that that is not the case, if at all that is not the case. This happened yesterday as they were just trying to see how they could find solution and as it pertains to this crisis, and actually long-term solutions as pertains to matters fuel crisis in this country. Regina.
Now, as we're sampling the various dailies, we have our social media platform, and this is on Facebook on our page, KBC Channel 1 TV. And the proverb that they have put there, it's an African proverb, and I find it quite curious. So it reads, "A man who drives his father's car is not entitled to speak in a council of men who own bicycles." Why? Hiyo ni ukweli.
Atake.
Well, a man who drives his father's car is not entitled to speak in a council of men who own bicycles. So inafaa translate you into a mother tongue.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
In other words,
African proverb. Now that's an African proverb right there. I get it in simple terms. And this is whatever you inherit,
is not essentially yours. So please do not look down or begrudge another for the little that they have worked for. It is in very simple terms.
Can you imagine the weight it would come with if you actually said it in your mother tongue?
No, I don't want to swallow my tongue. But
no,
yeah.
Just looking at each individual's mother tongue.
Victor, is it possible to translate it in your mother tongue, in your native language?
Yes. Luzo translate to a man who drives, yes, let me paraphrase it. Okay. In his father's car should not do what?
He's not entitled to speak in a council of men who own bicycles.
Yes. Because one dicho maringo emtokuon mare okonego bedo ni kelo kore kama jodongo nitiere mariembo gindikni. In fact, yes. Exactly. I mean, but the way you look at it, in simple terms, you drive in your father's car each and every morning, and we have got wazee in their old rickety bicycles in the village. What will you say? Watakwambia we bwana.
No? You cannot address that meeting.
You can't.
You cannot address that meeting.
Kidogo ni kwe Mwafrika.
Kidogo tu. Good. Now that was just to jog your memory, you know, just to remind you to act proper. Act proper. Never look down upon a person, no matter how little they have, or what you think is little to them might mean everything to them. So please, don't judge, yes, and don't think you're better than everyone else, right? However, you are good enough to handle your own business. Now we talk matters, what we have on the various dailies. I have a copy of the Standard, and it's all about the budget. And the scribe here has gone with painful budget. Whoa, those are the expectations. Painful budget. President signs a division of revenue bill which outlines how the national and county governments are to share money. Now this move paves way for Yatani to read the budget speech in the House tomorrow. That is 3 p.m. We're going to be having a special coverage from way in the morning up until 3 p.m. and even after, to just help you unpack the figures there and how that will translate to your pocket. So the president, this is the last budget. He needs enough revenue to complete his legacy project, but he also needs to pay debts and manage the high cost of living. That's quite a headache there. Now, and as far as the counties are concerned, is that the national government owes counties a cool 148.4 billion shillings. Yesterday there, the Council of Governors came out to say that they want Treasury to disperse this money lest activities and services at the counties ground to a halt. Parliament, members of Parliament there are seeking a re-election and will have difficulties approving the budget if it raises the cost of living, and taxes will have to be hidden since Treasury has to raise 2.1 billion shillings. You know, government does not generate its own money, it's you and I. So if the taxman is actually charged with raising 2.1 billion shillings, your guess is as good as mine, right? Now, Treasury Ukur Yatani, this is a man I do not envy, come tomorrow, has to strike a delicate balance between raising an extra 300B and ensuring the cost of goods remains manageable in an election year. So last year, or rather the financial year that is coming it's terminating on June 30th, the taxman was charged with raising 1.8 trillion shillings. This year, an extra 300 billion has been included in the target that the taxman has to raise. This coming from a COVID situation where government is really focusing on leapfrogging the economy. However, we have factors like the ongoing drought. We have also COVID disruptions. A majority of business have not fully gotten back to pre-COVID times. Then also now the Ukraine-Russia war, which a majority of Kenyans thought was so far-fetched, or rather we had no connection, so to speak, in as far as Russia and Ukraine, until you hear government coming out and also experts coming out and saying, you know what, we're looking at a shortage of fertilizer, you know, because we trade with Ukraine in as far as fertilizer is concerned. Wheat is another issue altogether. So we are not so far removed from the Russian-Ukraine war, and these are uncertainties that not just only the globe is dealing with, but now we also have to factor in as we are planning. Remember, when you talk about fertilizer, you're talking about food security, and Kenya prides itself as an agriculture-driven economy. We're also talking about matters of climate change, with the drought being experienced at least across over 20 counties in the country. So what to do? That delicate balance. We're going to be finding out what Ukur Yatani has in store for us in his briefcase. The target in as far as what government intends to spend in the next financial year, that is 2022-2023, is 3.31 trillion shillings. There's also been talk of raising the debt ceiling to around 12 trillion shillings from the current 9 trillion shillings to help government development finish its development projects and also pay off some of the loans that are maturing in June. Experts have also come out to say, you know what, in as far as Kenya's debt is concerned, while government maintains that it is stable, there has to be, or rather debt restructuring is bound to take place. Taxpayers want lower taxes, but more spending on development, not just civil service salaries. They also want the government to spend less on debt. In as far as the budget is concerned, government will be borrowing in this next financial year a cool 846.1 billion shillings. This is, they're going to split it into two. 570 billion shillings is going to be borrowed, I think, locally, while the other is going to be sourced from the international market. Details will be coming up in not too long. That's just a quick summary of what we have on the front page of this particular daily, including now MPs calling for the summons by DCI of Deputy William Ruto over Raila attack. Now, that happened last week. Some of the leaders there include Babu Owino, the MP and his colleagues, that is Babu Owino. They recorded statement, and this we're talking about Junet Mohammed there. They recorded statement yesterday with the DCI, and now they want Deputy President William Ruto grilled by DCI over the same. Talking about the front page, let me take you to the back page before I hand it over to my colleagues now. Soccer lovers, tonight is quite fun-filled. Real now is going to be seeking revenge as they face off Chelsea today. I'm talking about today's fixtures in as far as the Champions League is concerned. We'll have Villarreal taking on Bayern Munich at 10 p.m. while Chelsea is going to be squaring it out with Real Madrid at the same time. Now, what you need to know is that Chelsea will hope that lightning strikes twice. Well, we'll wait and see if that happens. Remember, the Blues will be hosting Madrid in the quarterfinal. Now, last season, we had the sides meet, and in the semi-finals, a 2-0 home win at Stamford Bridge, sealing a 3-1 aggregate success, and the rest, as they say, is history. If this is going to repeat itself tonight at 10 p.m., we're going to be there to see. The person you need to be watching from the Chelsea side is N'Golo Kante. He was very instrumental in that particular win last season, but also Real Madrid has some of its players who were not participating in this particular game last season owing to injuries. So we have Karim Benzema, you know, so that's a man to really watch. You know, he has had a good run, yes, with you know, PSG in the last 16. So let's wait. Madrid hasn't won in its last 5 trips faced against the English clubs. With this change, well, tonight we will be keenly watching. Now, yesterday we also had several matches take place. Just a quick overview before I hand you over to my colleagues here. So we had Manchester City taking on Atletico Madrid, where Man City won 1-0. Benfica, on the other hand, lost to Liverpool after Liverpool scored 3 against its single goal. So as I mentioned, today's Champions League matches are going to be between Chelsea and Real Madrid at 10 p.m. as well as Villarreal and Bayern Munich at 10 p.m. The EPL is still ongoing now. Tonight at 9:30 p.m. We're going to be having Burnley taking on Everton. So soccer lovers, indeed, that is something to watch. Jay.
All right, now I think from that point we can just quickly touch on some of the politics that have been highlighted on this particular daily. And I'd like to start with this story that I think, Victor, you touched on concerning the Deputy President, his role as the Vice President, and also what Jubilee has to say about that. So this daily has approached it from the Jubilee's particular point of view, where they go on to say that Ruto takes on Uhuru and the state over BBI cash and economic woes. So Jubilee Party is now questioning the millions of shillings that the Deputy President spends in his campaign, despite the outrage over the high cost of living. Okay? This comes just a few days after the Deputy President challenged President Kenyatta to own up to misusing billions of shillings in the drive for BBI. So the latest feud was sparked on Monday when the Deputy President questioned the whereabouts of the Petroleum Development Funds, the 39 billion, which was meant for fuel subsidy. And this particular daily continues to give a whole rundown of how that went. But on the flip side, yesterday, Jubilee challenged the Deputy President to explain how he spent up to 50 million Kenya shillings a week, which translates to about 2.6 billion annually for his logistics and local travel. And this one has been pegged on the most recent trip that the Deputy President took, where he went to the United States and the United Kingdom. It is said that his 131 team cheerleading squad, that's what they have written here, 131 man cheerleading squad, they're said to have spent 200 million Kenya shillings in logistics, flights, accommodation and allowances. A figure that they say is enough to provide an emergency food intervention in drought-stricken counties. Those were the words of Mr. Kioni. Also, Ndaragwa MP added that it is wrong for the DP to stand on the staircases of government offices, enjoying government security and staffing, only for him to insult the same government. And finally, he said that the Deputy President has two choices. Number one, occupy his dusty office at Harambee House and help the President in executing his duties, or resign from his position and lead the opposition atop his tax-funded, top-of-the-range Land Cruiser.
Where?
This looks like blame game. This side blames this side for using taxpayers' money. This side, on this side, you use this amount of money.
And it's very specific to how funds are being used.
Yes.
Not just any other political smearing campaign. It has been pegged on funds that and how they have been used in the recent past. Victor?
Yeah, they say that scratch my back and I scratch yours too. Okay, so very quickly, according to CS Matiang'i, bribery, rented crowds, biggest threat to security. Interior CS says the police cannot be blamed for clashes that emanate from graft contracts. And so he was speaking yesterday before the Senate Administration Public before the Senate, when he responded to several queries therein. And now the Kalenjin elders are now organizing for a prayer meeting after the incident that happened in Uasin Gishu. They say that they cannot do anything at the Mzee Kibor's neighborhood, because according to the elders, Mzee Kibor was a respected elder in the region, and therefore the incident occurred, and therefore the family cannot do anything. So what they're planning right now, they apologized to the former prime minister, and now they are organizing for a prayer and cleansing ceremony at the area where the incident occurred. And according to them, as per the tradition, the family of Kibor is still mourning, and they cannot do anything at the moment until after the 40 days. So the area is located next to home of Mzee Jackson Kibor, who died a couple of weeks ago and was laid to rest last week. So, yeah, every action has a consequence, right? So there is a problem to the motorist. According to the oil marketers, fuel shortage could enter new week. Small retailers caution. Mamma mia. Oil marketers reported to be holding on to fresh stocks, awaiting monthly price review. They say that major players in the oil sector are said to be hoarding new stocks, anticipating price increase in the next week's monthly price review. Independent dealers are also said that they are yet to access the petroleum products as major players ration the little stock that they have for their own franchises. Another reason is because of the long queues of loading trucks at depots is another reason that will see pump stations remain dry for longer. So let's brace ourselves for some tough moments ahead. Nikimalizia, Coast Hotels and parks count on Nairobians for Easter bookings. Sasa watu wa Nairobi, some people depend on you. It's called a food chain. Sindio? Yeah. So that's why I leave it. Anything you do, be to your perfection, but moderately.
Why are you being so dramatic?
Unamalizia,
unatuacha, unafunga, tunaenda nyumbani, yani nini?
But I think as a country we're very selfish.
No.
As individuals we come off as very selfish. Now for those who are holding that new stock, because last week was a conversation about them not receiving their pay. Now the monies have been disbursed, right? But hey, we are waiting for the April review that is coming on the 14th, which happens to be Holy Thursday, when people are supposed to be traveling for the Easter holiday. I'm like,
But
so if they're holding, is it like more of tit and tat? That state you stayed with money for
they're
long,
waiting and seeing. You see, right now, Super Petrol, for instance, is retailing at 134 and some few cents per liter. So they're hoping that the government is going to increase the cost of fuel so that they do either 5 bob or 7 bob on top.
You know, they used to do 15 bob on top.
Yeah.
Before the use of
the subsidy,
of the subsidy. But now the way things are, I'm not too sure.
But I think it's, just before you jump in, Victor, I think they're doing this because of the experience they have had with the government, because the government told them, oh yeah, don't hike the price of fuel, we will compensate you for the additional coins. But how many months has it been?
I mean, Jen, even
and the saddest part of it all is that the weight will be transferred to who? The common mwananchi.
To you and I. But you know, Jane, even as we talk about experience, Jane, much as we know the 34 billion was released to the oil marketers from that supplementary budget, the PS is on record saying that 8.2 is what has been paid so far. So we await for the clearance of that balance. So even as you look at oil marketers sort of hoarding, I mean, this could bring the whole aspect of experience that we have had this before. How sure are we as oil marketers that this is actually going to be paid to us in full? And I mean, these people are just in business.
Now, at the end of the day, it's just business for them.
It's business at the end of the day.
Some years back, we had a subsidy on maize.
Yes.
And the reason why we're no longer under that kind of arrangement, it's because there were delays, there was scarcity, we had to do the yellow maize, you know, because, you know, money was not flowing as it should, or as agreements were
promised to.
Yes. But now when you talk about IOCs, you know, OCMs, oil marketers, oil marketing companies, have you ever looked at, you know, the costings in as far as fuel is concerned? Before the levy, they used to make at least 12 bob.
12 to 15.
12 to 15.
Yes. Per liter.
Now, per liter. Now, 3, 4 bob.
3 to 5 years.
It doesn't mean they're not making money. It's just that, just as the CBK came in to regulate, you know, interest rates, the government is trying to regulate, you know, the cost of fuel. While others are arguing that it has to be open market policy. I'm thinking, whoa.
Open air market.
Yes, that let's wait and see. So,
but what if the review doesn't go upwards? What will they do?
I want the sasa
and do you
each
think
their own.
Yes, and do you think the government will reduce the fuel prices, Regina? Where we are?
That's a tough one.
Because
lakini kama bei ya stima ilipunguzwa. No, that's but we were told to hang on.
Over a span of 3 months.
The first phase was effected. The second phase, we're told to wait.
But then again, you also saw Kenya Power come out to say that for postpaid customers, you will now have to pay more, and especially starting this month, you'll have to pay more, and especially for any forms of connection due to the money that they're receiving, it not being enough, and defaulters. In as much as the government said, we are going to reduce the cost of electricity.
Now, let's look at it this way. I want to be optimistic, so to speak. We all know what happens during the campaign season.
Money is flowing.
Cost of goods.
We have to be wooed. You know, we are wooed.
I see where you're going.
Yes. So I am praying that they remember that this is a campaign season. And the hashtag lower food prices, fuel shortage should not be a thing we're discussing right now.
But honestly, is there a way we can find a long-term solution to this fuel crisis in this country?
Have you guys realized we never have long-term solutions to our problems?
It's really a back and forth kind of situation. I can remember that last year, I think it was around between February up until May, if my memory serves me correct, where fuel prices kept going up and up over time. And we understand we have the fuel levy, whereby for every motorist, if you go to purchase fuel from the pump, there's an amount that goes to this levy, which is supposed to stabilize fuel prices. So if this is the case and taxpayers get to do this, why do we have to always go back and forth with fuel crisis in this country, much as we can never have a long-term solution? But can we just find stability in some of these issues?
Talking about taxpayers, I'm very worried about VAT. Come tomorrow, I'm worried about VAT. I'm also worried about the pay-as-you-earn.
This is your concern.
That's my concern, because that
translates to what ends up in your pocket.
It affects what is in my pocket or what should get into my pocket, and it also affects how much I will use to buy that product. That is where my thoughts are.
And you know, Regina, as we bring this segment to a close, that ties to this, but there are two stories here on this particular daily. One talking on how almost every household's monthly budget has been affected due to the high cost of living. And this other one talks of how Kenya's poverty rate, which has surged as the economic woes continue to deepen. And when it comes to the counties, 42 out of the 47 counties, they have a 40% poverty threshold. 42 out of the 47 counties, and they go on to term this as multi-dimensional poverty, where they're looking at number of aspects. When put together, it is considered that this household is experiencing a multidimensional poverty, and this goes to not just the amount of income. They talk of access to safe water, sanitation, education, electricity, food, among many other indicators. So if you are experiencing a lack or shortage when it comes to at least 3 of this, that is considered multidimensional poverty. And 42 out of the 47 counties, at least almost half, are in this category.
Can we say we are all poor?
Well, can you also say that high cost of living needs to be addressed tomorrow?
Can I also have a question? What is your star horoscope? Jen, what is a horoscope?
I don't believe in those things, but that's not the question you have asked.
Loosely.
I fall in the, is it Sagittarius or Sagittarius category?
Sagittarius.
What is it saying? Tukimalizia. Minor health problems will cause setbacks if you haven't taken proper care of yourself. Doreen?
Minor health problems.
Kenyans who find some
We're just from talking about economic wars and budgets.
Doreen, what is yours?
Sagittarius.
Again, minor health problems will cause setbacks if you haven't taken proper care of yourself. Regina?
I'm a Virgo.
You're a Virgo. Hey. Don't jump the gun. You may find yourself getting angry at the wrong person. Hey.
That is so hard. Now,
mine is a Scorpio. You can anger others quickly today.
Just like what you are doing.
Before you get angry here.
Before anza kukasirikia watu hapo bure. Ati minor health issues.
Minor health issues. Okay.
This is why I don't believe in these things. Anyway, more of Good Morning Kenya coming after this break. To stay with us.
Thank you for watching.
Sometimes I doubt myself and I wonder if I did the right thing.
I'm really trying to be strong. Sometimes I even feel like running to her house and talk to her.
Why are you so concerned over Mariela, Antonio? Answer me. Earth made you think that I'm going back to you after what you did to me.
The important thing is for everyone to know why you didn't show up at the wedding. Yes, tell us. Why did you leave him at the altar?
Lying heart fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Akili, this is Akili. She has a secret. Tell us. When the sun goes down, Akili goes to sleep, and she enters a world where all the animals speak. Akili. But there is something strange about this magic land. The animals speak English, which she doesn't understand. But if you help her out, we know it can be done. Akili can learn English and it will be fun. Akili. Akili. I speak English!
Lakini kama unavyoniona mimi, siko tayari unifukuze kwangu.
Nakupa heko badi. Sasa wanipa heko kwa kuwa nilitegua kitandawili chako nikajua dawa ilipokuwa, ama wanipa heko ya nini?
Fanyaje Chambiko bila kuniarifu? Si nilidhani tuko sote.
Nani amekupatia ruhusa kuingia chumbani kwangu?
Badi amechaguliwa na Wazanu B.
Najuta kukuamini Dingo.
as mentioned, today it's a conversation all about cancer to understand where we are as a country. And as mentioned earlier on, we have with us Dr. Catherine Nyongesa. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. Tell us a bit about your background when it comes to cancer treatment.
We do follow the international cancer treatment guidelines, and more so we even have our own local cancer treatment guidelines. So we really follow science in giving treatment. So basically we stage the cancer to know what stage it is, and then what is the best treatment recommended. Putting in mind, we always have also multidisciplinary care, whereby we involve other disciplines in discussing the patient and giving the best way forward. One of the treatment includes surgery. You can give radiotherapy or chemotherapy, and sometimes a patient may have all the three treatments in a special sequence, depending on the type of the cancer and the stage of the cancer, and even the patient's preferences.
All right. Now tell us a bit about the situation. You know, when you were setting up this beautiful institution in line with the fight against cancer, where were we as a country when you were setting up, and just looking at the journey and how far we have come in the number of years we have been working?
So I look at it more than 10 years ago. To be precise, it was in 2020. And at that time, 2010, sorry. And at that time, we had very few cancer centers in the country. Patients had to wait for months. In fact, it was only mainly one public center that was offering affordable treatment. So patients had to wait for many months or travel long journey before they can get access to cancer care. And I remember one of the patients asked me, "Doctor, why are you giving me an appointment for 6 months down the line? What will happen to me 6 months to come?" So I said, probably instead of just waiting and lamenting, I took a step forward to see if we can set up a center that could bridge part of that gap. And at that time, I thank God, because the center came in handy and bridged that gap of delay in seeking care. We are able to offer timely chemotherapy, and later we had acquired the radiotherapy machine, so radiotherapy was also given in a timely manner. And I can just be grateful to God because of the success stories that we have had of the patients who've been treated and got better after our care. And there are times when the cancer patients present a bit too late, and all you can do is probably just manage and keep them comfortable. Some of them succumb to the disease, but we always try our level best to assist the patient to improve the quality of life.
All right. Now, Dr. Catherine, when we talk about cancer, for most people, we equate cancer to a death sentence because we might not really understand the context of which cancer really is. So maybe you could tell us a bit about, when we talk about cancer, medical speaking, what is it?
So cancer is a complex disease. It's just not one disease. And when you talk about cancer, it really depends on the site. Where does it come from? The age of the patient, the stage of the cancer, the type. You can even have breast cancer, but there are different subtypes of breast cancer. So all those makes it quite complex. But in summary, it is a disease which cells in the body undergo mutation, or they undergo a change. And with this change, they start multiplying without ceasing and form either a mass, a lump, or a growth. And this growth sometimes can spread to other parts of the body through blood stream or through lymphatic system. And it can also go in the bone marrow in the case of blood cancer. And with this, it brings its own challenges to the body because of the spreading. It can damage some of the organs. Patients can have bleeding. The cancer can bleed when it bursts or ulcerates. And also they can have pain where the cancer is.
All right. And what is the difference between the benign cancer and the malignant forms of cancer?
So the benign one is actually not cancer. Okay. Yeah, a benign one has no potential to spread. It cannot spread. Okay. So then that is not a cancer. Cancerous growths have potential to spread to other parts of the body and even destroy the area they have spread to.
Okay. Now, here in Kenya, cancer has been listed as the third leading form of, rather, cause of diseases, cause of death. That is after infectious diseases and cardiovascular diseases. And let's just start by understanding, looking at the genders in this particular case. When it comes to men, which are the most common forms of cancers that have been identified?
So in our country, as you rightly mentioned, cancer is the third leading cause of death. 60% of these cancers are actually reported in women and only 40% in men. When now we break it down to the men, the common cancers are prostate cancer, esophageal cancer and throat cancers, and then now we have the colon or the digestive system cancers. Okay. Yeah. When we come to women, we see breast is leading, followed by cervical cancer, and then others include the throat cancers. Yeah.
All right. Now, when it comes to public awareness, how are we doing as a country? Because for most of the cancer cases that I've been able to interact with, we always find people seeking treatment when it has developed to the further stages where treatment becomes a challenge. How is awareness contributing to all this?
So awareness is a challenge. I would say we still not yet there. Our government has tried. We do have the National Cancer Screening Guidelines, trying to even educate community healthcare workers to pick up the common symptoms about cancer, and still the reach or the penetration to the community is still very low. The awareness, I would say, is just around 10%. So we still have a lot of work to do as a country to educate the members of the public about the common signs of cancer, because cancer, the chances of cure is higher when it's detected early. Yes. And it becomes very difficult to cure cancer if it is detected late, or sometimes patients they are not aware that they have cancer, so that leads to delay in diagnosis, or worse so, inaccessible medical health assistance that is quite timely. So all that leads to a patient being delayed in diagnosis, and that ultimately translates into a poorer outcome and even expensive treatment. So cancer is really cheap to treat when it's early, and more expensive and more complicated to treat when it's late, because at that time also we have a lot of cancer-related complications that arise from the spreading of the cancer.
Dr. Catherine, are there any known causes of cancer?
Thank you. Cancer, majority of the times we don't know the cause. We can say they are sporadic. So you'll go in the community, dig in the family history, and you'll not find anyone with cancer. So you are like the first one presenting with that cancer in your family, and like you get shocked. So there are some identifiable risk factors for cancer. We've seen, if we look in our community, we see that women are more prone to cancer. So just being a woman is a higher risk. Yeah, and then the other thing is the age. We see most of the cancers are in people older than 40 years. Then use of tobacco and alcohol increases the risk. Infective agents, for example, hepatitis B can cause liver cancer. HPV will bring about cervical cancer. And then we have EBV, some viruses or flu-like viruses which can bring throat cancer in patients.
Now, that brings me actually to childhood cancers. In the recent years, we've been seeing more and more cases of childhood cancer being reported. Is this something that is also being noticed by medics in your space, or what is actually the main cause of childhood cancers?
So childhood cancer is rare in our country. In fact, about 3,000 new cancer cases every year compared to 42,000 in adults. So it is a rare disease. Unlike the causes of childhood cancer, for adults, like smoking, use of alcohol, children have none of those. So we suspect that it could be also sporadic, where the cells just undergo mutation and start multiplying abnormally. We know that children are growing and their cell multiplication is very fast, trying to differentiate into different organs to mature, and something can go wrong somehow. We also do have inheritance of some genetic mutations. For example, we call the retinoblastoma gene, which can predispose a child to bone cancers and even eye cancers. This can run in the family. We have other genetic mutation, we call them we call it xeroderma pigmentosa, where a child is just prone to getting skin cancer. This is also still transmitted genetically. And then we also encourage that when women are pregnant, they should not involve themselves in use of tobacco, alcohol, or even undergo radiation exposure, because they'll expose the unborn fetus to radiation. Also, we encourage women to only use medicines approved by the doctor and not just to take just medicines without any special guidance. The doctor should advise them if it is safe to use it in pregnancy.
All right.
Also, eating soil. I see a lot of women in the village, chewing soil, and you don't know what chemicals are in that soil, and it can be absorbed and affect the fetus, and in future can bring other diseases, including cancer.
All right. Tuache kusema ni mtoto anataka mawe.
Ati anataka mawe. Hapana. Because there are some minerals you are eating in that soil, which may be carcinogenic. Yeah.
And you don't know. Now, that brings me to the signs and symptoms that, we might not be aware to or alive to, that could actually be pointing to one cancer or the other. Tell us a bit about those general signs that we need to look out for.
Okay, so cancer generally will present with more than one sign or symptom. It will be a collection of them. But I'll just mention a few of the general ones, like weight loss.
Sudden weight loss?
Sudden weight loss, and it's unintentional. You're actually not like working out, but your pain is your weight is just going. You can have a lump or a growth that is progressively increasing in size. It may be painful or non-painful. Change in bowel habits, change in like you go to pass urine, you'll have blood in urine, bleeding from the body of unexplained cause, and then I would say coughing that just persistent, it doesn't go away despite treatment, and if we just narrow down to the common cancers, say breast cancer, you'll have a lump in the breast, lymph nodes in the armpits, you could have around the collarbone area. That lump can burst through the skin. Sometimes you have like pudorangine. That's an orange peel-like appearance of your breast. It's swollen and it looks like it's an orange or an onion. Those pins inside the skin of the breast, so that is a bit worrying. If it is cervical cancer, women will present with abnormal bleeding, pain on having intercourse, abnormal vaginal discharge. This is just one of the commonest symptoms. If we look at men with prostate, they'll have difficulties in shedding, micturition, a weak stream or passing urine. Sometimes the urine can get blocked, it doesn't come out easily. They strain a lot. If we look at throat cancer, you'll have a hoarse voice, soreness in the throat, difficulties in swallowing, and weight loss. These are just some of the common symptoms. But having said this, we know that these are generally symptoms that occur even with infections. Most of these symptoms actually occur with other diseases. They occur with infections, even with cardiovascular diseases. So for you to pinpoint and say it is cancer, the symptoms should be persisting at least for more than 2 weeks. Okay. And it will need a medical diagnosis. The doctor will have to confirm by doing a biopsy or taking a tissue from the growth or from the blood to confirm that it is cancer.
What about in children? Because like you mentioned, we see the eye cancers, blood cancers, and especially in children. Are there any common symptoms that we can be able to look out for and know that this could be a telltale sign?
So cancer is a great mimicker in children. In fact, it mimics all the infections a child can get. For example, with the lymphomas, they'll present with swollen glands in the neck. This is also common in flus. Yeah. They can present with gum bleeding, nose bleeding. If they have blood cancer, they'll have bone pains, joint pains. You'll find a child just not playing the way they're supposed to play. All the time they run out, play a little bit, they come to lie down, they say, "Oh, Mama, I'm tired." "Oh, teacher, please, I'm tired, excuse me, I can't play." They don't want to eat. They may have abnormal growths or swelling on their body. So you have to really be on the lookout. And if a parent has a high index of suspicion that this child is not well, despite treatment for infections, they need to take this child to be seen by a pediatrician who will take history, examine the child thoroughly, and try to look out for other issues which could be cancer. Because in children, 1 in 8,000 will have cancer. So it is very hard to pick this cancer in children, and unless it is somebody who a good doctor who can really examine the child and try to have a high index of suspicion to differentiate between cancer and infection. But majority of the things we see in children are actually of infection, and they can be managed, and within a week or two the child is up and about running. But when it's persistent for extended period of time, then it will be good to be screened for cancer.
All right. Now that brings me to the treatment options that are available when it comes to cancer treatment, and especially here in the Kenyan space, and also just what you offer here at Texas Cancer.
So in the Kenyan space, we follow science. We really try to embrace multidisciplinary care, because cancer is a complex disease. Yes. So not just one doctor can manage. It involves all the way from the nurse, the nutritionist, the counselor, the doctor, who could be a surgeon, an oncologist. We have medical physicists, we have radiotherapists, you have radiologists. So it is a whole, I cannot even name all of them. But for you to confirm cancer, number one is you need a tissue diagnosis. So the tissue will be taken to the lab, and the pathologist will be involved at that point in time. Once they confirm it's cancer, the patient will go back to the doctor, who will try to know what stage it is. Based on the stage, if it is early stage, surgery will be recommended. So the surgeons will come into play.
And which stages are these?
So we have early and late stage. Early stage is stage 1 and 2, where the cancer has not spread further, and then stage 3 and 4 when the cancer has spread. And generally with stage 4, it means it has gone to distant sites. Maybe it started in the breast, now you have it in the lung, in the liver, so distant spread. So as I mentioned, for stage 1 and 2, most of the patients will need surgery, so the surgeon is involved. And then when you come to stage 3, now there it's a combination. The surgeon may say, I think you need to reduce this disease by giving chemotherapy, then I can operate. So you have to involve the medical or clinical oncologist in that aspect. And then when it's stage 4, you'll find now the primary treatment will be chemotherapy, so you'll involve the medical or clinical oncologist. But surgery still may come in to relieve some of the distressing symptoms like bone pain. Maybe there's a broken bone somewhere, needs to be fixed. So really it is multidisciplinary. And in summary, the treatment could be surgery, which involves cutting or removing the tumor. You can use chemotherapy, where we give drugs either orally through the mouth or through the vein. We also have immunotherapy, we have targeted therapy. So there are a lot of developments in the chemotherapy space. And then radiation therapy is using machines to treat cancer. These are X-ray equipments. And in our country, I would say we have really grown in the past 10 years. We have all these treatments available in the country. We have national cancer centers offering all the three. We have county hospitals offering, say, surgery and chemotherapy. So there's a lot of growth, and I'm just seeing more and more growth in the coming years. We are training doctors to try and bridge the gap, because we had very few oncologists. So now our local universities are training doctors, they are training clinical officers in oncology, nurses in oncology, medical physicists, radiotherapists, pathology. There's just a lot that is going on in this space, including even the infrastructure.
Multidisciplinary.
Yes.
Now, on the other hand, when it comes to the growth that we have seen as a country, the finances always become an issue for many Kenyans when it comes to seeking treatment. And for some, they've actually said that, finances are the reason as to why we have not sought treatment. What can be done, or just paint for us a picture when it comes to the financial obligation that comes into play in cancer treatment?
So the financial burden for cancer care is high. One, because of the multidisciplinary care. It's not like malaria. You go to the GP in the peripheral hospital, they treat you and you are home and dry.
Yes.
Cancer involves all those disciplines I've talked about, and there's cost to it. The cost also goes to the navigation part, where you have to navigate from the counties. Probably you are being treated for infections, then they discover it's cancer. Already there's money spent on trying to establish the diagnosis. So, and then from there now you come now to the actual treatment after staging. So the cost is quite complex, and it is involving, I would say, NHIF has come in to give relief to these patients, because what I know is they can pay for your surgery in the county hospitals, and even in the national hospitals and some of the private hospitals, they give relief. NHIF can pay for chemotherapy, radiotherapy. So it is much better, I would say, since NHIF started supporting patients. It's been like almost 5 years. Okay. Things are much better, but it is not yet a comprehensive cover. So patients still also need to take responsibility. This is what the government can do for you, but also as Kenyans, we need to do things for ourselves. Like we need to invest in our health. As we invest in education, you could have a public insurance, that is NHIF, but at the same time, if you can afford, you can apply for a private insurance so that your family is cushioned in all aspects. Yeah. You can have a private insurance to top up. And also, as Kenyans, let's not wait when we are sick to enroll. We encourage people to get a medical insurance, even if it's the NHIF. Just enroll and have the card ready, just in case you get sick and you need help in terms of finances.
Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, as part of the value chain, as a stakeholder, would you say that we have an enabling environment in terms of policies here in our country, given health is a devolved ministry? How is the environment enabling you as a practitioner, as a part of the value chain, to ensure that you're giving the best to the common man, each and every patient you interact with?
I think from the government perspective, I always believe the government is you and me, so we are all part of the government, being a Kenyan. And then there's a political goodwill. Our current president has put health as one of the big four agenda. So already that puts health in a step ahead in terms of attention. Though we still have a lot to be done, because cancer care is complex, and the infrastructure, the human resource is all costly. And I would say probably our government need to give like soft loans to health institutions to strengthen them, like to be able to build good infrastructure to be able to offer this very essential cancer treatment or cancer care service. I've seen, I would say in the past few years, we already have big national centers. The government has invested in those big national centers like MTRH, Kenyatta University, Kenyatta Hospital. So there's so much positivity, and all I would say is that the government should continue providing an enabling environment for this kind of healthcare growth to go on.
All right. And for those that may be seeking treatment, what services do you offer here at Texas?
So here we basically offer cancer treatment. We offer from diagnosis of cancer, screening, then we have chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and on chemotherapy we offer a whole range of chemotherapeutic agents like the conventional chemo, the targeted therapy, immunotherapy, and all that. We also have outpatient services, inpatient services. We treat thyroid cancer using what we call radioactive iodine. This is radiation that a patient ingests to treat the cancer in the neck from the thyroid. We also do have a pharmacy and laboratory, just to mention a few of our services.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us today. How can we find you on social media?
So you can find me as Dr. Catherine Nyongesa. Even Texas Cancer Center is also on social media. You can also go online, Google us, drop us an email on info@texascancercenter.co.ke.
And there you have it. Cancer is a problem, but it is treatable if it is detected early. If you have the opportunity, go get screened, address those symptoms before they now become full-blown cancer, and by that we'll be able to avoid the whole situation. We have been speaking with Dr. Catherine Nyongesa. She is a clinical oncologist as well as the founder of the Texas Cancer Center here in Nairobi. I am Jane Romboy. Thank you for being with us today.
Get ready for the next big thing.
A woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman.
So we need to start bringing out the profession in a woman. When we demonstrate, they will come when we've been tear gassed, not when we want to pass the message.
The Dada's Show is back, a show where women get to be themselves and discuss real issues.
She cannot allow other women to come on the same space because she's getting different privileges from men. So akiona mwanamke, ako like, this is a competitor.
This being an election year, we have given an opportunity to women to express themselves and share their expectations during this critical moment in our country.
The issue of corruption and how it has impacted women and children in this country.
Create jobs for the informal sector, create jobs for the youth who leave the universities.
Hatutaki bora uongozi, tunataka uongozi bora.
Keep your heels, head and standards high. Dadas, coming soon. As part of the government policy to achieve 10% forest cover, conservatory and protection of the ecosystem, Radio Ingo, in conjunction with Kakamega County, Kenya Forest Services and National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, will participate in tree planting at the Kakamega Forest on 8th of April 2022 and on 9th of April 2022. A church service will be held at St. Paul Muyenga Anglican Church of Kenya in Kakamega. Let's plant trees for a better tomorrow.
Revive this tradition. Let's bring this back. So Davey Boy, anyways, fighting for his family's pride tonight here against Low Key. Wow, going up top. Brian Pillman Jr. as a member of the New Heart Foundation to put his name on that. Your beautiful rotating power swing. Oh my God! Pillman! Promise! 1, 2, Pillman advances in the up. Playing in this evening at 100.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us this far. But in case you're just joining us, karibu tena sana. This is Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Mamboy. Remember, you can always talk to us, check in, and let us know where you're watching us from. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle ever remains to be at KBC Channel 1 across all the social platforms. My handle is at Jane Mamboy. So right now we move on to Women at the Forefront. All about women, all about breaking that glass ceiling that society put there that we're going to reinvent. And today we have with us Jean Adero, who is the founder of Reimagine Africa, and she's also a life coach. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
There's your camera.
Yes.
You can say hi to our viewers and give us the social handles or how our viewers can interact with you.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I am Jean Adero, and I can be found on Facebook or Instagram at Jean Adero.
All right, beautiful. So questions, comments, feel free to send them through, or even just clarification. But remember, use a friendly language, okay? Even if you do decide to get in contact with her personally, I believe she'll be able to get back to you as and when that will be possible. So the last time you were here, it was all about books.
Yes.
Read Across Africa.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about how things have been since then.
Read Across Africa is still doing well, and just for context,
Yes.
I started it in my parents' home, ancestral home in Kisumu, Karateng, that is very near Maseno.
Yes.
And of course, we have had challenges during COVID. We had to shut down, but what we did is our librarians would go door to door distributing books to our kids. And that worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
The coolest thing that's happening is that our first Form 4 students are taking their exams.
Yes.
And we seriously expect that they'll be top of the country.
Look at you, proud mother right there.
We're really, really excited about that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Now let's come back to today's point of
Yes.
conversation, Women at the Forefront, and you being the founder of Reimagine Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a bit about Reimagine before we even get to your personal journey.
Yeah. Reimagine Africa came out of the idea that I sincerely believe that everybody deserves to be seen as a human being. And in order to do that, there is the individual's desire that must be harnessed.
Yeah.
And I started this really to make sure that I took part in harnessing every single person's life, anyone that I came in contact with, that I helped them see that they have a place and they can also help others up.
Okay.
You don't need to be at the top to do that.
So how does your personal journey, your experience even tie into this beautiful feeling that you have when it comes to wanting to help other people?
Oh my goodness. I think for me, of course, I've lived in the US for the last 30 years. And I lived a pretty, it was kind of a big life. It felt like it was going really well until it crashed in 2008 when we had the greatest recession since the Great Depression. And I lost my job. And I was faced with losing everything and was forced to file bankruptcy. So I had seen a financial my life crashed. And then what did I have to look at? I looked at my whole life and realized that before I was financially bankrupt, my spirit was bankrupt, my mind was bankrupt, my family relationships were bankrupt.
There were signs that you sort of ignored?
Right, everything was spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I had to be financially bankrupt. That's how it ends. So there was something that was happening for a long time before it actually crushed. And so, that's when I had to look at myself and say, who am I going to be? And of course, I started thinking about myself from the African perspective, because in the US, you're constantly trying to find your place. Where do you fit? And I still fit in Africa. And so I decided to reimagine me because I recognize that Africa is a person and not a place.
And we'll be coming to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that I noted in your bio when you say Africa is a person and not a place, contrary to what most people believe. And most of the time we always hear all these narratives: Africa is a country, Africa is I don't know what. There's all these different variations of what Africa is supposed to be. But now let me come back to, you know, you've mentioned you've lived in the States for about 30 years, but you also had a life in the Kenyan space before you went there.
Yes.
How did when you were sort of finding yourself and understanding that you need to tie these two parts of your life together, how did that look like for you?
So it was a little challenging. You always felt like a fraud.
Yeah.
Because you are trying to fit into the American space. You have an accent. You don't understand a lot of social conversation. You try, but you know, you were not there as a child, so you can't always fit in. And then also, if you think about it, I was in the United States in 1991. That's when I first walked in, and we were seen differently then. So you're more trying to fit into the American world than claim your African roots, right? So there's a conflict there because you know that your African roots are so important to you, but you're guilty because you're trying to be something other than. And then, of course, you're young. To fit in and to make it, you know, so that people can understand basic things. And you know, a lot of people wonder, why do Kenyans pick up accents when they go to the United States? Because you're trying to go to the grocery store and speak and not have someone question you every 5 minutes about, you know, why they don't understand you.
Yeah.
That's really, really what happened. And it was very challenging. But for the longest time, I was living a life that felt like someone else's. It wasn't my life. And so I went from job to job, career to career, and that's why you find that a lot of people have so many degrees, have done so many jobs, because they're trying to connect the inside, but they keep going externally to get information that makes them more marketable, what's more knowledgeable. And yet what you're looking for is at home in your heart.
We chase to fit in as opposed to getting what fits us.
Exactly.
Now, that brings me to the whole aspect of purpose, which you had mentioned was tied to that period in 2008. And purpose is one thing that I know for a fact so many people struggle with. What is my purpose? What is my calling? So from your personal experience, your interaction, your personal journey, and your interaction with the different people that you have been able to interact with, how would you define purpose and calling and differentiate between the two?
This is so easy for me. This is what I say to people who come to me. I'm a life coach, and they come to me asking that question. And I say, think about it. If you had 2 days on this earth and you knew that you were going to die, what would you regret not doing? That is your purpose. And for me, I looked at it and I said, if I do not impact the African continent with my gift, I will regret it. If I had 2 days, I would be struggling and running around trying to do that. And that was the answer. Let's not make it complicated. If you had 2 days to live, what would you regret?
Not eating fries. Just kidding. By the way, don't go around saying Jane's purpose is not eating fries. So then you went through your own experience. You had to understand yourself in this state that you found yourself, that you know nobody wishes to find themselves in such a situation. So what steps did you take next that you can say this immediately changed the narrative for me?
So I started reading, and I think in this digital age, everybody needs to spend time on Google University and YouTube University. That's where you find the free resources, and you have access to every single person who has been successful that you admire. And for me, it was Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah Winfrey raised me because I say, you know, I used to watch the Oprah show every day at 4 o'clock when I was in college, because she literally taught us what America was about, because she was on every day. And so we're the people who say, oh, she's our auntie, because we felt that close to her, even though she has no idea who we are, right? But now when I went to YouTube, I started connecting with some specific coaches that I really like. And there's one specifically, it was Lisa Nichols. And I felt like she knew me. So guess what I did? I started looking for her. And I was like, I know she comes to Atlanta. I must find out what she does. And then I eventually found her in Costa Rica. And I actually decided, I looked and I was like, I don't care what it takes. She's in Costa Rica. I want to see what she talks about because I felt like she understood me, right? And it was that coaching experience because I hired her as my coach, and I always tell people it cost me 2.5 children, the price of 2.5 children. It was expensive.
It was a lot of money.
But what is the cost of saving your life when you feel empty inside and you have all the trappings of, you know, do. Give notice.
Now, looking at Reimagine Africa, you also focus on professionals of African descent in the diaspora. Is this one of the reasons as to why you do that?
Yeah. For me, someone needed to help me. And I said, once I got out of it, I started noticing that everybody has something, right? Everybody had something. And so I didn't know how to do it. So what I did is I invited a group of women to tea. I went on Facebook Live and I said, hey, come over for tea at my house if you're interested. This is what I'm doing. Some people did not show up because they didn't think they were worthy of coming to tea at a stranger's house.
I'm still stuck there. You go on Facebook and tell people
I did it on Facebook Live, and they had been listening to me on Facebook Live, and so I decided to invite women, and I think about 60 women showed up. And then we just talked, and I just wanted to have these conversations about purpose, living, and living well. And after they asked, so what's next? And I didn't have a what's next, and I started a book club. We used the book Think and Grow Rich. And that is the book that has helped me coach over 150 women in the last 3 years. And the transformations are unreal.
Have you always focused on women? A larger part of the population that you work with has been women. Why is it so? And you also say you focus on women to help them reinvent themselves from the inside out.
Yes.
Why that approach?
Well, that's where my story starts. I'm one of 6 girls. And of course, if you look at a family of 6 girls, you know there was a man who wanted a boy, right? And so we found out, you know, my father obviously wanted a son, and he didn't have one. And so in our family, the tragedy of the past, and I want to make it very clear that that's the tragedy of the past, is that when he died, there was a family squabble of inheritance, and he had had a male child outside of the family, outside of his marriage to my mother, and he was the priority. And it is so sad what we do to these young men, because you can imagine the guilt that he carries because the inheritance was to go to him, and a whole family's squabbles were placed on his shoulders, right? And so during that period, we were in court. We were in court for, I believe it was 11 years.
Oh, wow.
You know, and think about what happens to a family at that point. My mother died five years into it while we were still fighting. So you wonder, what is this? Why don't we organize ourselves in a way that enables families to move forward and inheritance matters become clear on paper, legal documents that families have agreed upon? So that's where that fight, if you had seen me maybe 10 years ago, I was in a fight with all the male relatives in my family. I was in a fight. And it took the healing of that for me to be able to do this work now. I'm not angry at anyone now. I healed myself. My pain is gone, right? And so I'm able to lift others because I see their pain. When some of the people in my classes go through death, I'm able to help pull them out because I know your story, because it's my story, right?
You've been there.
I've been there. I've walked it. And I can help you walk it, right? I've been there empty, looking for purpose. I can help you find it. I've been there living in fear, and now I know how to do it afraid. Heck, I'm afraid today,
Right? And look at you still doing it.
But you do it afraid.
You do it afraid. And do you think that's the part that most, and especially women, are considering this segment, we undercut ourselves even before we get there? We are sort of, in one way or the other, our own limitations?
Exactly. I wrote myself off. I remember in 4th grade, the teacher asked, who wants to do the solo? And I knew I could do it in Mrs. Mahero's class at Karen C. Primary School. And I never raised my hand. And I knew I could do it. And I lived the rest of my life like that, right? And yet...
Knowing you can, but you don't rise to the occasion, and you don't even put your foot forward.
Yes. My whole experience at Kenya High School, I didn't think I was enough. I just kept... I stayed in the background. And years later, I ran into some girls at Kenya High, and they said that they thought I was a big personality. I said, you didn't know me between 13 and 16. I was terrified, and I was always writing myself off. So guess what happened when I went into the workplace? I did the same thing.
The cycle kept going.
How you do one thing is how you do everything. So it was everywhere, in every part of my existence. I had this big personality, but inside I was putting myself second. And this is truly the first time in my life at 50 when I'm finally putting myself first, right? And so I don't want young girls to wait until 50. I already did that for you. I'd like you to do it differently, right? So that is why for girls and women is a part of my life.
Let's just also acknowledge the fact that she said she's 50. Here looking as good as she's looking, being all 50 and glorious. All right, it's a very personal and very intimate experience for someone to actually just acknowledge that, you know what, because we're always quick to blame the outside or other people as to why things are not working out for us. Now, comes to this program, let's get to this program, Design Your Life.
Yes.
What is the backstory to this? What's the background?
I designed my life. I got to a point where remember I had gone through financial bankruptcy, and then of course that was 5 years of being in, it's supposed to be 7 years, but I think they let me out early. So 5 years in, they let me out of bankruptcy. The federal government, the US federal government let me out of bankruptcy. And I started thinking, so what are you gonna do? Right? And so I had gone to a conference. Bob Proctor is one of the coaches that I really liked. He just died this year. I used to call him my grandfather. And most people are like, no, he's not. That blonde-headed man is not your grandfather. But I liked his teaching so much. And I listened to him on YouTube for years. And then a friend gave me tickets to go to his event. And he talked about reading this book, Think and Grow Rich, and it changed his life. And he sounded like such a loser from the past. He had been reading it every day, a page or a paragraph or a sentence, for 56 years. So I came back home and I said, that book has been sitting on my nightstand for years. So I started reading it. And I went through chapter after chapter, and I started with fear. I found out what I was afraid of, started fixing that. Thoughts, what am I thinking about? Fixed that. Desire, I asked myself, what do I want? Did that. Faith, I decided, you know, I've been told to have faith in the church, but they never told me how to have faith. They said, have faith and have faith, but I didn't know how to have faith. And I started practicing what they were saying. And, you know, I just went through the chapter, and then I got to imagination, and I realized that that is my superpower. I have used my imagination to get everything that is valuable to me. And so I started using my imagination, and I said, what kind of life do you want? And I write it down. And I'm a Christian, so I say Habakkuk 2:2, write your vision, make it plain, right? And so I started writing, and that's the basis of how I teach the class. And I walk you through, first of all, I started teaching the class backwards, because I start with fear. Instead of starting chapter 1, I start with the end. And I help women see that you are not living at your greatest potential because you are afraid. And there are like 6 fears, like fear of death, fear of poverty, fear of criticism. That's a big one for African girls, because we have been criticized and criticized and criticized. And so I use that. It's a 16-week course, and I walk women on how to design a new life. And the results are unbelievable.
And what is the end goal that you always are out for when it comes to these women? Like, you want to ensure by the time the 16 weeks you mentioned are over, these women can actually have a change of perspective. What is the end goal?
I want them to remember who they are. Just, you see, you're not finding out who you are. You already know that. You have just forgotten. Remember, earlier on, you and I were chatting, and I said, when I was 5 years old, my dream was to be Miss Piggy. Okay? I used to watch the Muppet Show, and I wanted to be Miss Piggy. And now looking back, it was the spirit of Piggy that I loved. She was powerful, she was brave, she was strong. And I lost that somewhere, right? By the time I went to Kenya High, it was like I didn't even know who Piggy was. I'd probably be like, Piggy who, right? But when I look back now, I have remembered that I wanted to have that spirit of power, of possibility, of just calling the shots. And I now live that. So my goal at the end of the day is not to teach you anything. It is to help you remember who you are. And you were born with a purpose, you were born with a mission, you were born with a calling. And people who leave my class find out that calling. They remember what it was. And that's, I think, the key to the transformation of this continent. We will stop copying and we will start living our own lives. And everyone will enjoy it.
Now, that actually brings me to the I Am Africa experience.
Yes.
You smile at that.
Yes. And I imagined it. So from my class, my first cohort was in 2019. And so these amazing women came to my Zoom call. That was before I used to call people and I'd say, can you join a Zoom? And people would be like, what is Zoom, right? So we got on this Zoom call and we would discuss the book. At the end of that class, they refused to graduate. So they came back. Yes, they did. It was such a safe space. We could talk about anything, our fears, our pains, our joys, right? And so what happened there is about 10 of them became coaches. I said, you guys have to teach something, because I just sensed the power. And I said, if I can do this, any one of you can do that. And so 10 of the women who are here with me came out of my class and now are coaches, and they're coaching something that is needed in this holistic life, right? And so we're here. We did this in Atlanta in August last year. So we're here, and I Am Africa is really a space for us to look around and see that we shouldn't wait for someone else to come and live this life. It is your life. You are the one responsible for this continent. You have a place, you have a gift. It's time for you to use it and start to see other lives change. Because the impact, the thing is, when the women come to my class, they say, I ask them, what do you want? A woman will never say, I want to become top in my company and just walk away. They always want to carry others behind them. So this weekend at Hermosa Garden and Spa in Karen, we're going to be talking about what it takes for you to live a whole life. Spirit, mind, body, family, work, money. And I have it in that order. Money is last for me, simply because if you have the first 5, you will find money. If you start with your spirit, mind, and body, you have good relationships with your family, you will find your career and money will follow you.
Now, you know, somebody watching us today, they'll be like, okay, she's all about women, but women cannot exist in this perfect bubble.
I know.
They still have, you know, the male counterparts at home, at work, whatever space. And we are also trying to teach women to, or rather remind them, not teach them.
We're not teaching anything.
Remind them who they are while still being able to exist in this reality that is our life. How then do you also help them remember who they are while still looking at their current life and the people that matter to them, and especially of the opposite gender?
First of all, I am teaching my first male class right now.
Oh, yes. Man, you can stop complaining.
And the men in my class are hoping that there is no homework because I'm traveling. See you tomorrow night. Okay, because they actually wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh wow!
Because I'm in U.S. time, I am on at 9 p.m. Now I join at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
I didn't make them change the time, but the class is available to men as well. And I really, really would like to get into the space where I am coaching men as well. But I feel like when you remember I said I had a fight with all the male relatives in my family.
Yes.
So I had to heal that, right? When you find out who you are, you no longer have grievances with other people. Period. If you have grievances with people right now, check yourself. Literally. You have work to do on yourself. Otherwise, if you have purpose, why is somebody else's life bothering you? Right? That's how you have to look at it. And that's really what I did. That's what I do. And the other coaches who are here this weekend are there to guide women to understand that there is no war between the genders.
It's not a competition.
There is none. Create. Stop competing. Create. There is no competition.
There is no competition. All right, remember we were talking to Jean Adero. She is the founder of Reimagine Africa and also a life coach, Africa's life coach, which we'll be mentioning in just a bit. But first, we want to take a very quick breather. Breathe in, breathe out, sip some coffee, sip some water. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
What you treasure in your life, I will take away one by one. Come to a Lover Hotel, room 302. You stole someone else's husband before, didn't you? Miss Jenny. Yesterday, I spent the night with Jack. Mom, I want to marry him.
Kuna siku nimekuja nikakuangusha.
Hujaniangusha lakini niliacha
kuangusha. Yes. Kielele ni nini umeleta hapa kwa koti? Now I'm asking you. Huyo mtu alikupepa na potapota. Yuko wapi? Unaweza mtambua kwa mbele ya mahakama?
Siko mbele yangu, iko sura baya hiyo chura.
Sasa msiaseme sura kuliko kusema chura. Mkiangalia tu vizuri, leza pepa kunia kama hii.
Wewe iko ita nani kunia? Maswali gani hii wewe?
Wewe ndio nakuuliza swali, wacha kuuliza swali. Wewe uko kwa chama ya potapota?
Abana?
Very good, abana, toka hapo. Fenda. Sasa namna hivi. Mama ambaye niliangusha ni mama yako.
Si mama yangu.
Si mama yako. Kwa nini umeleta hiyo uchinga hapa at the same time unasema you will come to be a president of this nation? How? Inaingia namna gani?
right, welcome back. We continue with the program, Women at the Forefront. Jane Adera with us in studio. I am Jane Ramboy. Hashtag still is Good Morning Kenya. Now, let's get back to this, you know, where we were before we went for that breather, and tying it to once you have experienced this journey and you get to find yourself again, how does it also just spill over into other aspects of your life or even the people that surround you?
Yeah, I think for me, I've noticed that I have attracted the most amazing relationships. Think about it. I came in with 9 other women. No, 2 of them, let me say 7 from the US.
Yes.
I called them in February. 6 weeks ago, they bought tickets and they came, right? Because this is so valuable to them. And we have an amazing friendship. We don't see each other every day, but I know they've got my back and I have theirs. I mean, from when you change yourself, the joy inside of you spills over, and you have amazing Uber rides, and you're like, oh my goodness, my Uber driver was wonderful. This person in the grocery store, they were so amazing, and it seems like luck follows you. You win things. And I used to be earlier in the years, I didn't smile that much because my life was hard, so I wasn't smiling. And then I realized that people who smile get things. I was like, okay, that's all I need.
I'll try that.
I smile. People who smile get things. Walk into a difficult situation and show up with that spirit of joy. People help you without you even trying.
What you put out there
literally
comes back.
Basically the law of cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right?
It's so interesting because many a times we find ourselves in such situations. You went in ready for war, then you got war. You went in ready to make peace, and you got peace.
Exactly.
So what you put out, you will get it.
It does. It is, it is just planting a seed and harvesting. It's the same thing. You plant one thing, you're going to harvest it. You plant an apple seed, you will get an apple tree, right? And I said tree. That means there are a lot of
multipliers.
Yeah, so choose, do you want it on the positive or negative?
All right. Now let's come to this statement about embodying Utu, which is part of what you are all about. Tell us a bit about that. You had mentioned that is something.
Yeah, it's so important to me because when we see the humanity in others, life changes, not just for you, for everybody. We are not perfect beings, and we behave as if we are. So we look at people from their worst mistake. And think about your worst mistake, and if others only saw you in the context of that, right? Utu, the embodying of humanity and that empathy, is something that if embraced will get us to see other people as human beings who happened to make a mistake, who happened to do something bad. They are not messy. They made a mess. Mistake. Right? You are not the thing. You just happened to do it. Right? And I think I love just looking around when I'm in Kenya, and there's so much beauty, so much joy. Actually, the reason I wear these beads is because I saw them in the market and I was like, look at those beads, they're as beautiful as all of us. The colors, the sizes, the shapes, we come in so many different forms.
Bring them all.
Bring them all. And allow us to exist, right? And I think the hardness of us, and I see it a lot, and I think people are in pain. But if we look, especially if you're having a somewhat good day, give it to someone else, and they will experience something that they might want to pass on, right? And I think this is at every level, from the leadership down, and we tend to blame the leadership. What about from the bottom up? When was the last time you asked your boss how they really were doing, right?
As opposed to expecting
all the time. That they are the ones to ask you, right? We're human.
Is this why you call yourself and also have been called the African coach?
Well, I gave myself that name, Africa's Life Coach.
Flips here.
yeah, flips hair, right? I called myself Africa's life coach because I was reading somewhere and it said Muhammad Ali he said he was the greatest. And when I was a kid, you know, people would go around, I don't know if they do it anymore. It was like, who's the greatest? We'd say Muhammad Ali. We knew that, right? And people started calling him the greatest. He called himself that first. And so I thought to myself, how do I differentiate myself? And I said, Africa is my thing. I'm going to be Africa's life coach. Simply because I felt like the African voice is not being heard. I had an American coach. I love her to death. She's an amazing lady. But some of my stories traumatized her. I am able to coach from a context that other Africans get. The coaches who traveled with me do the same thing. We are able to speak to our stories. You know, I can, and so one of the coaches that we traveled with, she talks about how she grew up and the plan was for her to participate in milking cows. If you said this to an American, they'd be like, doing what? Like, she was milking cows, that was the path for her, and now she lives this big life in the United States, right? But that broad dimension that she presents, it's difficult for people to understand.
Yeah.
We need coaches who have lived it so that they can understand people who are looking for the journey and who are in the journey and need support. Other people don't get it.
Most people don't get it, especially when it comes to the African culture in a different cultural space.
I'm tired of explaining it. I just want to be. Right? And I'm sure there are many other women who would say the same thing, many other men who say they're tired of explaining it. I want to be with professionals who know it, live it, and have no apologies for it.
So why do you say Africa is a person and not just a place?
Because we keep trying to change Africa. Africans say, we need to change, we need to change, we need to change. And I'm like, no, no, no. We need to change ourselves. Because the thing is, I am now surrounded by these amazing people, and the Africa that we were trying to change hasn't really changed. What has happened is that the people that are around us have changed, and therefore it feels amazing and beautiful. We don't have complaints about, you know, our circles, because our circles are beautiful now. We've changed.
Right? It's still a mistake. Now, you also, there's a statement that was in your bio that you said, underachievement is no longer an option for women. And helping women understand this, because for most women, you know, it is never just about you. And this is almost for everybody, but you find women carry the biggest part of this burden. It is never just about me. There's me, and then there's a whole other train that I'm pulling along. Understanding that underachievement is no longer an option.
So when I wrote that, I was saying underachievement for women is no longer an option, but I hadn't started coaching men. And I'm now coaching Kenyan men, and they tell me the boy child. And they say that the boy child. And I'm starting to understand that the burden that women talk about on their shoulders is the same burden that men have. So when I say underachievement is no longer an option, I'm basically saying that God put you on this planet with an intention. There was something specific. There's a job that you came to do. Do that job. And in order to do that job, you must be brave enough, have the courage to seek that job. And here's the cool thing about God. He will never give you an assignment without giving you the capacity to fulfill that assignment. So it looks, maybe you're basket weaving, and your parents are like, nobody ever made money basket weaving. Ask Martha Stewart. Nobody said, you know, she was looked at as this person who was cooking and making crafts and she has a huge company that has been there for a long time. There's some people who just talked. Look at Oprah Winfrey. You could have said, oh, she's just on the air. No, she has changed the lives of millions of people and now is reconnecting with that very African continent. Because guess what? African Americans are also looking for connection. And guess where it is? Right here. home is here for them.
Okay.
Right?
Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, to just sum it up in maybe a statement or two, and especially looking forward at the program that we'll be starting this weekend for both men and women when it comes to finding yourself again.
Final statement is, you are only remembering who you are. Get still. And when I say get still, I say create a ritual where you spend time thinking, spend time clearing your mind, and spend time connecting to God. Connect your spirit, mind, and body. Everything follows perfectly.
When you are still.
When you are still.
Be still, and you will find yourself.
Be still and know.
He's God. All right, now due to the interest of time, we have to pause at that particular point. But maybe you could remind us how our viewers can be able to interact with you on the social media platforms.
Sure. I can be found on Facebook and on Instagram at jeanadero.com. I'm sorry, let's do that again. www.jeanadero.com, and then there's at Jean Adero on Instagram and Facebook.
There we go. So you can be able to interact with her, get to know more about the program that will be happening this weekend. Jean Adero, founder of Reimagine Africa and also a life coach. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Now, that is that in regards to what we had lined up for you. But be sure to join us again tomorrow morning right here on Good Morning Kenya for another fantastic show. My name is Jin Ramboy. Bye-bye for now.
Wana elimu lakini pia hawafanyii kazi elimu yao, wanafanya kazi kwenye maslahi ambayo Allah alikataa. Wanafanya kazi kwa maslahi, hawafanyi kazi kwa kufikisha tauhidi kwa haki ya kuifikisha.
Biidhnillahi ta'ala, naomba tuwe wenye kupata hidayah na kufuata uongofu wa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ila yaumil qiyama, ili tuweze kunufaika.
Malikin nas ilahin nas من شر الوسواس الخناس.
فدقت قلبي نداك يا ربي ما لي سواك، في ضعفي أترجاك ربنا يا هدينا.
Parapanda imelia.
Safari mbona umeacha kunipa raha?
Hiyo basi usikose burudani tosha kila siku ya Jumanne hadi Alhamisi saa 1:35 katika tamthilia ya Maza, runinga yako ya KBC Channel 1.
We are home.
Divididos por una sombra de traición.
Sometimes I doubt myself and I wonder if I did the right thing.
I'm really trying to be strong. Sometimes I even feel like running to her house and talk to her.
Why are you so concerned over Mariela, Antonio? Answer me.
What on earth made you think that I'm going back to you after what you did to me?
The important thing is for everyone to know why you didn't show up at the wedding. Yes, tell us. Why did you leave him at the altar?
Lying heart fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
after what you did to me.
The important thing is for everyone to know why you didn't show up at the wedding.
Yes, tell us. Why did you leave him at the altar?
Lying heart. Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Vitimbi Jumatatu hii. Jumuika nasi siku ya Jumatatu ili upate uhondo kamili kwenye vitimbi. Hiyo basi usikose burudani tosha kila siku ya Jumanne hadi Alhamisi saa 1:35 katika tamthilia ya Maza.